I love it when it's like serendipitous, right? Like because the sports talk we could be having leads right into our topic of the day.
It's very true.
To catch you up, Dr. Delgado,
Yeah.
Ray's local Jacksonville Jaguars are having a rough go of it this year after
No kidding.
I think it's fair to say overpaying their quarterback to the tune of $55 million a year for the next
Ouch.
4 years, right, Ray? Or is it 5 years?
4 years.
It's 4 years. Yep. So, just $210 million quarterback who has been underperforming, or does he shows up to work?
I would say underperforming, but I don't know if you caught the game this past weekend.
Oh, I caught the game.
Okay, then you would have saw that there was
morning.
4 drop touchdown passes. So
Yeah, and then there was also how many missed throws to wide open receivers? He hit a defender in the butt, Ray.
but doesn't matter. There's literally 4 drop touchdown passes. How
But,
can you win a game? You can't win a game.
But I guess I mean not to give the game away, right? Like what we're going to be talking about, but I would argue that perhaps the quarterback and the head coach are having a miscommunication in regards to expectations.
You see, now that you say that, what I'm getting out of this thing is that maybe I should be working for you guys because I was working most of the time and you were watching a game. So I wonder.
No, 9:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning, sir.
What?
The
9:30
game was in
on a
London,
Sunday
so
morning.
it was Sunday
Then I
morning
was
game.
working by all means. Yeah.
You came and picked up the kids at that time.
Well,
You saw that the game was on.
I started working at 7 in the morning, pick up the kids, drop the kids, and then keep on going. I finished at about 9 o'clock on Sunday.
Don't worry, the game wasn't good. I was able to get a lot done.
It was terrible.
Oh,
I got yard work done in the morning on Sunday. That was my extent of work.
So then, yeah, let's just jump right into it, and then we can kind of dive into it. Because to give you a little bit of background, or actually, Ray, go ahead and do the intros, and then we'll give you some background.
So, seen a lot of familiar faces here, but for those that have not attended, appreciate you being here on this one. My name is Ray Walters. I will be your host of today's session. I'm joined by Jose Jr. Jose, wave your hand. Jose Jr., 17 plus years experience in healthcare consulting, owns a mental telehealth practice. And then I'm also joined by Dr. Jose Delgado, who is the CEO of EPICompliance. And also, I think this is a good topic that we're discussing today. And again, those that are joining in, we're going to be discussing employee corrective action plans and termination processes. Dr. Delgado has well over 2 decades of experience in healthcare consulting, working with larger healthcare practices. And Dr. Delgado, you currently work for a fairly large healthcare practice that has well over 50 locations and some affiliated clinics as well.
I tell you, I know it's over 40, but the hard part is I can never get to the final number because we keep expanding, merging, doing all kind of things.
Sure.
I do have
adventures and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I do have close to now back to about 90 providers that I supervise directly. And then it's you guys, of course, and then the other companies. So yeah, and then actually I've been working on my profile lately, and I think I'm only about 5 months short of 30 years.
Man.
Something like
In
that.
healthcare. Before that, it was the Air Force, though.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, in healthcare. Yeah, but even in the Air Force, I did some healthcare, but I just say outside of the Air Force military, as a consultant, it's close to 30 years. Wow. So, yeah, I've seen a little bit of just about everything. And I could tell you some things that I say will blow your head away. And I want to say the first one that comes to mind was we were doing a webinar, and all of the providers needed to be there. And we had the cameras on to make sure that they are there. One person decided to put the top head of a mannequin with a wig. And that was her presentation. And it's not the first time she's done shenanigans like that. I say, somebody like that deserves to be fired on the spot. However,
Was she there, or was she there and just playing a prank, or was she not there and trying to get away with it?
she was not there trying to
Oh
get
my
away with
God,
it.
it's like
Oh,
a slap.
all right.
A
See,
slap in
I'm
the
trying to
face.
give her the benefit of the doubt, but she's
I
not
was,
helping.
I was thinking the mannequin, maybe she's just joking around and talking in the background or something. No.
I think
Yeah.
that what happened was that she didn't put the mannequin in a stable place and it fell, and the noise brought our attention to the mannequin or something like that. So she doesn't even know physics either. So it was, gosh, she
Well,
doesn't work
so
for me anymore.
so to give you a little bit of background, Ray and I normally come up with the topics a couple weeks ahead of time, but we always tell our audience, hey, if you guys have questions or something you want us to dive into, let us know and we'll dive into it. And so one of our regulars came up with this topic, and it kind of coincided with you coming on to the monthly podcast. So your monthly appearance on the podcast. So Ray and I decided this would be a perfect one to bring you in on.
Yeah, yeah, because I have dealt with this in multiple times.
I
will
mean,
tell you,
probably just yesterday.
yeah.
No,
Well,
knowing the amount of support staff and the amount of providers that you have, and the interpersonal relationships between all of it, it gets fun. So
yes, it
yeah,
is.
so I mean, I guess we should start from the beginning, right? So because if I were to look at this kind of a topic, I would say that even in an at-will state, I want to protect my assets if everybody catches my drift, right? So it would be something to where, in order for me to more easily separate the organization from the individual, it would help if they understood responsibilities, roles, do's and do nots. Would you agree with
Yeah.
that?
Well, the thing is that this topic, believe it or not, I could actually do a whole week seminar just on this topic. But I'm going to keep it brief. The whole point is that once you are the manager, by default, the laws are against you. So it's basically you have to prove what you are doing and that employee is in turn not correcting their actions. And this is the same even when the federal government looks at compliance. They cannot just go out and say, we're going to start enforcing it right away. If you really look at all of the laws, basically they say the effective date is Feb 2024. The enforcement date is October 2024. That is important because what it means is that they're not going to go after you until after October, because that will cover the government from the standpoint of, we send you the information, we provided everything, you choose not to comply, now we can get you. But during that is like a grace period. The same is true with employees. The problem with employees, okay, go Jose.
Pause 1 second, right? Because, and you and I have experienced this very, very often on the consulting side, every time we're dealing with a practice and a client, and even in the mental health sphere, when we were talking about different supervisionary rules, right? Who can supervise what and how. The Unlike the federal government, who they may be notifying us of a change, good luck finding the change. They say they upload it, but it's not like they put it in a one-stop shop. They send out a giant press release and move on. They put it on some esoteric database that, if you don't know that database even exists, you're not going to find anyone that can tell you where it is. Whereas if I, as an employer, I have to go above and beyond to make sure that everyone is aware of any modifications to any regulations or any new regulations coming on.
Well, there's actually something more, and we don't want to scare our audience, okay?
No.
There
But I
is
mean,
such a thing as conflicting laws. And that's why my answer to the question is it depends. It depends on the conditions, what law applies. So a lot of the time, and this is almost daily, somebody comes to me with a problem. I say, okay. And they say yes or no. And there's no such a thing as a yes or no.
yeah.
First is what the law says. Second is what the intent of the law says, so you can follow up. And then is to look if there are any other laws that actually contradict or create a different opportunity. And on top of that, then you have to look at what did you document? Because if you didn't document anything and you took action, then you're screwed. And it's sometimes, and I'm gonna tell you, right now, when I have to let somebody go, I prepare that months ahead of time. And I start doing counseling, and I start documenting, and I try guiding that person. What I don't do is let the drama and feelings come to board. Even to the point of, and that's why it's important, is how do we start the process? Let's go first, processes. What is the first thing you gotta do? You need to have a good job description that tells that person the do's and don'ts. And then you need to have a good policies and procedures that tell them what is acceptable that can be done in the workplace. It could be something as simple of, don't let your teenager that is coming here to work on the weekends to look at patient records and then start calling people about that. Because again, a breach is a breach is a breach. What we're talking about, if an employee is not following your policies and procedures, or they even not performing. But if you don't have it in writing, now you have a problem because you cannot enforce. And then it would be hearsay. I told them, they told me, when you go to court, you lose, period. So you got to look at what is right from the standpoint of the business to minimize liability. And then you got to look at the law and what do you need to do based on the law to minimize that. So one of the things that I do, going back to processes, and we have a lot of those under EPI. First thing is make sure that it's clear, the policy, procedure, or job description. If it's not and they're doing something different, create a document like a memo for record where you say, okay, this is the way to do this thing, initial. And you want them to initial that because that's an acknowledgement that they are saying that they were presented with the information and they didn't have any questions. So for those people, they always say, oh, I didn't get the email. Oh, I didn't see it. Or I wasn't aware. You take that out right away, okay? Then the next thing that I do, and this depends whether it's a procedure, and it could be a procedure, could be something that's making copies, answering the phone, or something as simple as seeing a patient. So the next thing that I do is that I created my own evaluation process based on the job responsibilities. Because when you look at the evaluation process and say, okay, this person is giving me problems. Okay, look at the last evaluation. There were 10s on everything. When you're 10 on everything, I say, well, then you're God, because it's the only one that is perfect. So all of those templates for evaluation, I throw them away. They're worthless. The idea of an evaluation, and you have to change the mentality, is that based on the job responsibilities that you have, I'm going to use metrics to give me an idea whether you are meeting those responsibilities or not. But the metrics are going to be such, and the way I do it is, if they are doing the job that are paying them for, they score 8. If they don't, they score below 8. If they do better, they score above 8, but they never score 10. But the idea is that that way I can actually say, okay, this person is doing a good job, or this person is doing good here, but it's missing this point in this area. So that now when the time comes for me to actually create a corrective action plan, I have metrics. I have something subjective to do it. The worst thing that can happen is for you to try to implement a corrective action plan if you don't have the metrics of what you want to correct and how you're going to correct it. I'm going to give you a quick example of something that happened. And it was sad. It was one time where I actually lost my coolness. I have an issue between a medical assistant and a nurse practitioner. They were creating so much stress in the office that I actually called the nurse practitioner and said, listen, it's Thursday. For me to defuse the situation, I need to take all of the feelings out. So go home, pay. I'm not going to actually do anything against you. Just enjoy the weekend. And on Monday, we will deal with that while we're dealing with the medical assistant. The nurse practitioner didn't want to go home because she thought I was penalizing her, and she wasn't at fault. And I say, how can you say I'm penalizing you when I'm giving you days off
You're
and I'm
giving her a
paying you?
vacation. You gave her a
for it?
vacation day, a day and a
Yeah.
half of vacation.
But this is where emotions get the best out of you. So she refused to follow my instructions. She actually became combative with me. So at the end of that call, I say, okay, fine. Either you take the time off, paid,
Paid.
and nothing will happen to your record, or you're fired. Done. Because I'm telling you what to do so I can solve the problem. You don't want to do it. You being there will continue to increase, I would say, the tension level. Everything's going to be worse. No. So she accused me that she was going to actually get her lawyer and sue me and sue the company. And she went on and on and on. And I hung up the phone. There's no point about you wasting time with somebody that is emotional. But that's why it's important that you have the metrics. That's it's
Well,
important.
so in
Yes,
your example, let me pause you there, right? Because not all employees are the same. I hate to say it like that, but it's just the reality of the healthcare industry. I love my MAs, I love my support staff, but if a provider who is a revenue generator does the same thing as an MA or front desk person, there tends to be a differential punishment, if you will. How do
yes,
you manage? How does one manage that, right? Because a lot of times you will see it where, okay, an MA did something stupid, and then the provider did the same stupid thing, but the provider gets 2 days paid off, and the MA got written up.
okay. I
You
do
know what I mean?
have,
Like that's because I feel like that's where the trickiness comes out for people in the trenches dealing with all of these personalities and these different issues comes
actually, I
into
will
play.
go one further. Nepotism is
Mm.
well, healthy, and alive in the US. So let's go
Not
that,
just the US, but let's,
yeah,
but okay,
yeah,
continue.
yeah. But let's say that it's not a nurse practitioner. It's the son of the provider, owner of the practice. What
Okay.
do you do? How do you get them? How do you, and like you say, where I work with all of these 80 something, there are some providers that I cannot touch them because it would be difficult to replace them and put somebody else there. But what do you do so that they don't go straight to the owner and the owner comes down at you and say, you cannot do that, because then you lose power when you are engaged in that situation. I'll give
Agreed,
you
but
the answer.
I'm not so concerned about the office politic of the nepotism with a family member of an owner. Because my bigger concern is the morale issue of because there already is a divide between
Yeah.
providers and then everybody else,
Yes.
right? Like I feel like that's the one that's a little bit trickier for everybody to kind of manage and deal with.
Yeah. Okay. And that's where my solution comes into play. And this is what I have done lately. The first thing, when I first implemented that evaluation system that is based on 80. So if you are doing your job, you score 80. I have quite a few physicians come to me and say, this is wrong. I said, why do you say
I've
it's
never
wrong?
gotten a B in my life.
Yeah. And they were scoring 64, 70. One I went to see, and they were sitting at a 48, 50. And they look at me and say, are you coming here to fire me? I said, no. I mean, this is a conversation point. Let's see where you are scoring. What are the areas that you are not meeting so we can fix that? Let's look at what are the resources you need to do it. So again, take the emotions out. Go based on numbers, objective. These are the numbers. This is what we need to do. How do we do it? And then the other thing that I do is by you assigning weight values. So not all of the metrics have the same. There are certain things that have a little more value than the other. So we're going to get to 100, but nobody gets to 100. The highest
Mhm.
anybody have gotten in 6 years, I think, is an 84.
Hmm.
Nobody else, but I have seen also as low as a 35, 36. Okay.
Yeah.
But now I have a metric. So what am I doing? I'm creating a different environment where that person is putting pressure on themselves based on the corrective action plan that is based on the metrics. This is wrong. I'm measuring you're failing to meet this requirement. And I don't put it as a failing. I put it, you need to improve in these areas. So now, because I'm tracking, I see where you need to improve. Let's now make it as a team. We're going to be working together. You know what I'm tracking so that you can improve your numbers. So people are competitive. So I don't say you put it as a game, but you put it as competitive. So nobody wants to be on the 34 when they could score 100. In their mind, the subjective consciousness is telling them, you are a failure, you are a failure, you are a failure. So I'm hitting them with that. Boom,
Well,
boom, boom. So,
does that metric also dictate like I don't know, raises and stuff like that
oh
as well?
yes,
That can make it
oh yes.
extra competitive, I would say.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Not only that, what I do is, again, I hate paperwork. I don't like to do it. That's why my undergraduate was in math, pure numbers. Okay. So, but after every time that there is a cycle and they're not improving, I meet with them and I write a memo for record. What is that memo for record? It's a different way of saying that's a warning. You are not meeting the requirements of the job. But if you say it's a warning, they become defensive. If you say there's a memo for record, they will be open to listen. And if they're not open to listen, it's telling you that person is not going to improve. They don't care. They're going to try to bypass and start working on the process to get rid of them. And it's all based on return on investment. And I tell them, listen, I'm going to try to help you to get to where we need you to be contributing to the organization. But if they show that they are not willing, that they are not following that correction action plan that have metrics that are based on their evaluation, then it's time to help them. And I change then the script. Then at that point in time, what I do is say, okay, so fine. It is evident that the requirements that we are imposing and based on the structure of the organization will make it difficult for you to succeed here. So why don't we start helping you to look outside to get you a different job? So now I'm actually also making them part of get another job, because if you don't leave by the next 30 days, I'm gonna fire
you're on the clock. Figure
Yeah.
figure it out. No. And I'm okay with that. Because I mean, shoot, even between our two organizations, we've swapped providers before.
Right.
So it's been hilarious. And when we swapped them, it turned out that everybody worked better that way too. It was kind of it's been very, very interesting watching how that a change of environment can really change the performance of an individual. But that kind of leads me to the next thing, because you're managing multiple locations, multiple providers in one location. Sometimes it's a single provider in a single location. Sometimes you have providers that are bouncing around. When you're doing these kinds of evaluations and you're judging, for lack of a better term, performance of an individual, how often are you also taking into account the environment? Because the
Always.
environment can be very, very
Always.
critical to success or failure of the entire organization, much less an individual.
Yeah, no, there are times that I look at an evaluation and the provider is at 44, 45, 50. But then I look at it, okay, this is a new office, so we're not going to be getting all the data we need. That provider is pretty much by themselves because I cannot staff a fully manned office. So there are other considerations related to the metrics that I will use it and say, no, I can justify this, this, and that. So in that point in time, that provider may have a 45, may have a 49, but it's not in trouble. But again, it goes back to what is the principle of doing evaluations? What is the principle of doing a corrective action plan? Is to involve that employee to say, this is where we are here. So you made that person kind of okay, you're going to be a salesperson. You're just going to be a cleaner. You're just going to do more to help us get your numbers where it is. It doesn't matter. The only difference is the value that you put, whether it's a negative or a positive. And that's what I say, listen, look at this process as you are doing an examination on a patient. The fact that the patient is overweight and has high blood pressure does not mean that it's a bad person. It only means We got to do some things to change that so that you are a healthy person. It's the same thing with this. And on an ongoing basis, I can apply this to chiropractor's office, dental office, with any environment you tell me, and I can tell you how the system could work. What are the things that you want to be looking at? Because it's not the same, like you say, it's a medical assistant, it's a receptionist, it's a PT assistant, it's a surgeon. Because I tell you, I don't care what is your responsibility. There are always ways to measure that person's contribution to the business. And I put it as a return on investment. And I was just interviewing somebody today. And I said, listen, this is what I expect from you. These are the numbers. This is how I do it. I am going to invest in some people 6 months to a year, training them to the point that I say, okay, now after the 1 year, I want to see a difference on this thing. But if I do that and you are not responding on day 90, hopefully I will identify that before, but I give them the chance to be learning. If you are not hitting the low hanging fruit, the easy to meet goals, that's telling me that I should not continue to invest on you. So at that point in time, again, I changed the script. Okay, now the script is to help you to go into an organization where you can excel. It's that simple. And again, there are some people, again, because people say, well, that doesn't work all the time. Well, it depends. It goes back to it depends. There's some people that they want to earn over $200,000 by staying home in their pajamas, doing nothing, and they don't want you to even call them early in the morning for a meeting because they're still sleeping. What are you doing with an employee like that? And then the problem is that it falls on the managers, on the leaders, on the owners. I tell you, I don't want to be working to fit somebody that doesn't want to do their job. Why?
Absolutely.
I will make more money by myself. So,
absolutely.
But you have to take control. It falls on you. So that's why I say it's not just a corrective action plan. If you are jumping from 0 to a corrective action plan, you haven't done your job. What are the expectations for that? And what are the metrics that you're going to use to measure that?
Well, so leading to that, we have a question from one of our members, one of our audience members, and it's in regards to the employee handbook.
Yes.
So I'm going to just read it verbatim, even though I can. When your facility or organization has an employee handbook that every employee signs acknowledgement of receiving upon hire, stating that the said handbook is recognized as the HR policies and procedures, is this enough to stand up in a wrongful termination, court of law, employee trying to get unemployment, etc., after all the appropriate documentation is in place, of course? My default answer is, are you actually following through? Because that's where you and I normally see the problems is they may have a handbook, but then they have the evidence of people not following the handbook and nothing happening, but then following the handbook and not following the handbook and then getting written up, or differential enforcement, or not paying attention to some things and then other things are overly enforced, right? So how would you want to answer that?
Okay. The first thing, handbooks are a minefield. I have created multiple types of employee handbooks for multiple organizations. And you'll be surprised in some of the organizations how the employees will brainstorm that to find the holes and go there.
Absolutely.
So that's one. Second, whenever you go to unemployment, chances are you're going to lose because it doesn't matter what you have done. There are very few cases where I actually have been able to win the cases, no matter what. So just having a handbook and having the employees sign it is not enough for you to create a case. The first thing that I will do is that have a corrective action plan, but it is also from the standpoint in all the policies we have something that relates to that. What are the sanctions? That's actually even required by HIPAA. What are the sanctions to your employees when they are not performing? Okay, well, the sanctions are the first time that they're doing something that they are not supposed to, no matter where it's documented on what policy, you call them in. You actually document the facts. Anytime you put something subjective and feelings, and you're gonna screw because they're gonna turn it on you. Facts are great. I mean, feelings are great. Facts. This is what we say. This is what you needed to do. Do you understand? Yes or no? And then in that saying, and the form is actually on EPI. I created many years ago. And I say, we're going to follow up on this in 30 days to make sure that you have followed and you understand what is expected. They don't do that. Then at that point in time, it is, listen, you're fired. I can fire them right there. Nothing says that you cannot fire somebody on the spot, but everything says that you have to give the benefit of the doubt to the employee. So sometimes what I do with employees, I say, okay, maybe you didn't understand what we're saying. So let me retrain you on this. I mean, there was one time that what I did, there was one physician sending all of the patients for a test to another physician. When I asked her, I said, well, I don't really feel comfortable doing it. I don't know how to do it. I said, okay, fine. So what we're going to do as a corrective action is that for the next month, you will be doing
all of them.
Yeah.
You'll be doing all of them, and the other physician is going to supervise you to make sure that you learn how to do it. And then after that, you're going to do yours and some of hers so that she can make sure that that was done properly. So I just changed it backwards, and it was, oh, yeah. So now tell me that you don't know how to do it. But again, just having the manual is not enough. But again, it all depends. It
Well,
depends
so-
on what's the violation. Now, let me give you an example before you go. I have one employee that actually was stealing prescription notices to give to her boyfriend to go and
Pads.
yeah.
Jeez.
Remember that? That's not a listen. We're gonna sit down and counsel you. No, that was a okay. Here are two
That's a
letters.
federal crime.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, but again, it was a friend of the doctor. So I say these are two letters. One is your resignation. The other one is your termination. I don't care which one you decide to pick, but this is ends today. So which one? So in that case, she decided to go resignation. So at that point in time, then we created an investigation. We did all that. We got rid of that employee. So if the Department of Justice wanted to follow her or DEA, she's no longer with the practice. We solved the problem, and then we changed the protocols to protect the practice.
But yeah, okay, but that was an example where you had her bent over a barrel, not necessarily literally, but in a manner that, is a federal crime, right? So where do you stand on these kinds of issues? I've taken to the Mike Pence route, right? Where if there's an issue, I will always have a witness. They're not speaking. They're just a witness to the conversation. They're a witness to the interaction, just to make sure that they may not be able to cause issues because of the termination, but they may be they may try to cause issues because of the way that the termination could have been avoided. You know what I mean? Like those kinds
the
of
power of two.
issues, if you will. Huh?
Yeah.
I said it's a power too. You might be, as the employee, you might be unlikely to cause as much of a scene, if you will, when there's two
Right. So
two
where
supervisors
do you
involved.
stand on that whole like having a witness there, especially when it's of the opposite gender and things like that?
Okay, this is the problem that I have encountered. Okay, where they say,
Good question, isn't
when
it?
we present the paperwork and say we had a witness during that conversation, they say, yeah, but that witness, she hates me. She was in favor of you, so she should not be counted because it was the two of you ganging up on me. So that issue of the witness can actually be turned against you, and that's why I go back to document. These are the topics we're talking about. This is the resolution, the corrective action plan that we're going to follow. Make it factual. Make it as direct as possible, because at that point in time, they sign on it, or if they refuse to sign, they still were in the room where those topics were covered. So now I have a witness, I have a corrective action plan that is factual, and then I have her saying that she was there, even though she didn't agree or he didn't agree. They're still signing. So that means that we covered these topics. So that way I cover myself from anything that they could try to say that second person, it wasn't, you were like what happened to me sometimes. You were ambushing me. I didn't know anything. I wasn't prepared. No, again, factual documentation. If it's not on paper and it's not clear, it didn't happen. If you, I mean, one of the things I will tell everybody is start getting familiar with the AIs. Because at that point in time, and I'm talking about artificial intelligence, you can create a very simple note that is very objective in a matter of seconds. And normally what I do is I break it down into bullet points. Okay, this is the topic. This is what I want to do. These are the bullet points. And then I let it work it. And if I don't like it, I say, redo it, change this and this. And it's an efficient way to do it that won't cost you that much money. In the past, because these are legal documents, it will take me an hour, sometimes 2 to 3 hours to develop something that wouldn't be used against me.
Okay,
So now I do
hold
it
on.
in 10, 15 minutes.
Now, you and I have had this discussion before, but we haven't had it on this podcast.
Yes.
How long it's a time investment tool, right? AI is always a time investment tool. If you're going to start utilizing AI, if you don't utilize it very often or you're unfamiliar with that new tool, it's going to take you longer than to do it the way that you've been doing it, especially if the tool that you're already using isn't broken, right? So how long have you found that it takes for you to get comfortable with the AI and the AI to understand the things that you're looking for?
Okay, now you're talking about a learning curve. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Because anything with HR, any modification that an organization is going to make, there's going to be a learning curve. You know, whether that's not having a sturdy handbook, not having sturdy training, a robust ongoing recertification or annual examination process, whatever the case may be.
Okay. So now, and I can get back to the manual because now with the manual, I do an onboarding, which is another way to prove that they were not just reading a manual, they were presented with that. But the AI, the learning curve is very quick. It all depends on which one you use. I had some people with high school diplomas and doctors that I trained them on how to use it in half an hour. And then they're up and running. And let me tell you, when you're paying a doctor $200 an hour, and all they're doing is creating a document, it takes them 3 hours. I now invest half an hour, and the documents now she can do it or he can do it in 15, 20 minutes. Buddy, the return on investment there is infinite. And then with the AIs, they actually keep track of the different conversations you're having. So as you are building one, you go back to that conversation, they already have a background. So it's easier for them to develop the follow-up to that. So that it's just, we have to embrace the new technology because we don't have the time. Now, the problem with that, because this is, the other day I saw this and I said, oh my God, lawyers are going to be out of work. There was a subscription to an AI that what you do is if you want to create a contract, you tell them what it is, the AI creates a contract. It's already being legally trained. If you have actually a contract, you can upload it as an attachment. The AI will review that contract and come back with recommendations about what are the changes or what are the things you got to be careful about. Most of the time, these reviews will not take, well, sometimes I've been surprised. It will do it in less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, so I've had that conversation with a couple of different attorneys, and they're like, the way that the AI can do the research is incredible. The AI making the arguments is still a little bit, it can still be a little bit wonky. It needs to be supervised and double checked because it's garbage in, garbage out. If someone goes and puts in garbage into the AI, that AI is going to be pulling that information into what they're doing.
Well, I tell you, for EPI, I'm sorry to cut you short, Jose, because you're completely right. I mean, they are not that smart yet. Like, for example, Ray will come to me with an issue with a client. And I say, okay, that's interesting. The first thing you need to do is break it down in a way that the AI can read it and understand. Then you enter it into the AI. They come back with the solution, let's call it. A lot of the time it's incorrect. But because I know the law, I know what is the previous guideline, I'm keeping up with it. I see where they are, the faults, but I see that, okay, yeah, there's a point here, here, here. Or sometimes I say, this is a complete garbage. Throw it out and let me change the parameters so they can tell me what I need. So it is a tool, but if you don't know the information, you cannot rely on the AIs right now. But understand that they are learning. And the more they learn, the better the outcome. I don't trust an AI 100%, but I use them because they save me hours of work. Otherwise, I couldn't do what I'm doing right now. So, yes, you're right.
It just reminds me, I used the AI to compare the WISHA versus the Florida Department of Health, OSHA, and all I had to do was just go into each of the legislation and sort of just copy paste, and it sort of just it gave you a nice comparison and contrast. I don't know, just
no, it can be useful. I'm not anti-AI. Let's be perfectly clear. I just couch my optimism with skepticism, if you will. You know, that's
But
all.
let's go back to the main topic. Correct.
Well, and so I was gonna say, we have a follow-up question to the one that we asked before, and specifically, this is, and I know you're gonna love this one. This one has to do with attendance, call-ins, multiple tardies. I guess in this company's has text messages are not confirming that a call was made to speak to somebody and that it is accepted as an acceptable tardy or an acceptable absence. And I imagine that you've got quite a bit to say on that one just because of the amount of shenanigans you see with the amount of offices.
No. I mean, that I was doing counseling to a doctor just yesterday about that. We start scheduling patients at 8:30, but we ask the providers to be there at 8 o'clock. And this person is not the only one that, as a provider, say, well, it's 8:30 the first patient. It will be 8:45 by the time they put it there. So if I get there at 8:35, even 8:45, I'm still on time. No. And again, like you say, there are some people that you will put more pressure than others, depending on the position, depending on how easy it is to replace. But again, calling in, and no, that I'm late. Well, and again, it all depends.
A text by call-in, if that is your primary mode of speech, doesn't work for me.
No.
And if you have it documented that they can text, I would not do that because I know that I can set up a text to just go and send out automatically. You know, like at a certain time. Hey, I'm not coming in, and I wrote that thing 8 hours ago.
But then the thing is, okay, being late one time, fine. Being late twice in what period of time? Are we talking about in 10 years, they have been late 2 times? Well, I have a lady that has cancer that drives 2 hours one way and is never late. She calls me that she's late twice in 3 months. I'm gonna eat that as saying, listen, I actually have been lucky. Now, somebody that is testing me, and I would even say on a weekly basis, the first time is, okay, something can happen to you. The second time is, it's not, I don't care even if they call me. First time, oh, I was late taking my kid to school. Fine. Second time, oh, it's just that the line to get to the kid into the school was too long, so I was late again. No, the first time is, okay, that is acceptable. Now, what are you going to do to correct? So we go back to the same thing, corrective action. No, second time, and sorry. No, now I'm writing them off if I don't fire them altogether, because I don't have people just to be there and have a party. I'm actually it's scheduling them based on the need.
And for me, not all tardies are the same, right? Like, hey, I'm pulling into the parking lot. I'm 2 minutes late. Is that even worth bringing up or just giving them a look of, maybe you should leave a little bit earlier next time, or like versus 15 minutes, 30 minutes late. You know what I mean? Like
Somebody that is late 2, 3, 5 minutes on a daily basis, that's behavior
no,
modification. So,
absolutely,
and,
100%.
and if you're testing me, I'm 5 minutes late, I will get pissed because
Yeah.
you interrupted me from working to read your message. That test, while you were testing that, you could have been coming in and maybe be there on time. So
Yeah.
don't give me the test excuse. I don't care. If you are late, you are late.
Yeah.
But like you say, it's why. And then based on why, is this a behavior modification? This is the trend with that employee. It changes nothing other than people don't like to talk because they say, in test, you're not gonna hear if they're sick or not. So I have one, Jesus. It's just that for everything you throw at me, I have an example. One that say,
That's why we thought this
oh,
one would be perfect for you.
yeah,
I have a good one for Dr. Delgado, but
well, let me finish this
whatever,
one
keep
because it
going.
was funny. Oh, my kid is sick. I spent the night with him, so I'm not going to be able to go to work. Fine. It just happened that I found out from her father that she was in the Dominican Republic on vacation with her boyfriend. Buddy,
Oh man.
you lied to me. That is immediate termination. Because now I have proof that you told me something, that you were doing something completely opposite, and that I had to reschedule patients because of that. No. That's not it. Okay, but go, Ray.
I hate to bring up the subject, but COVID, for example, and some of the larger practices you worked for, obviously, during
It's a
COVID,
gift that
less.
keeps on giving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But my point is, larger companies, smaller companies, had to terminate employees quickly due to business needs and financial needs. What sort of necessary steps do you have to take in that particular predicament, and how would you suggest HR handling a situation like that
So
where
you have a couple of problems with the COVID example too.
Yep.
And for starters, if that organization took PPP loans and they fired somebody, that case had better be bulletproof. Because if not, now you're on the hook for not just the issue with that employee, but also having to pay back those loans.
Well, there's
And
more
you
to
didn't
it.
make money during that period of time, which is why you took PPP anyways.
Yeah. When you're talking about COVID, and there are things in terms of operations that you're right. I need to reduce my size of operations, but you cannot fire them because they have COVID. Because that will be seen as discrimination. You gotta have now. If it's somebody that comes to you and say, "I have COVID for the third, fourth time in 6 months," listen. There's no way. I need medical proof that you actually did. But there are some cases that you gotta be careful that is not taken as because somebody is sick that you're gonna fire them.
No, I didn't mean it at the level of, oh, they got COVID, we got to terminate them. But I'm saying using COVID as an example because a lot of practices had to reduce their size because people were working from home, or the business just wasn't generating enough revenue.
Yep.
So obviously when it came to selecting, how do people terminating
How do you
employees.
right size? How do you
Yeah,
choose
yeah.
who to right size? Is that
Okay.
what you're asking?
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, that was kind of where I was going with that.
Let's
So
go now.
that's a great question because
Okay.
that one I feel that it's a little bit easier if you can voluntarily separate but show that it's because the business is not doing well, because then you're not showing that there's the employees doing anything at fault. I just can't pay you.
Yeah. Well, I go back to the same thing. Look at the economy right now. With the economy the way it is, everything is more expensive. So there are some businesses that cannot afford to keep the same manpower. So at that point in time, how do you get rid of somebody? Well, again, you got to be careful that you do not discriminate. So again, I'll go back to metrics. Well, based on the metrics, if everybody is the same, who is, and you cannot get rid of just the people that cost you the most. You gotta say, okay, based on this thing, you have to do an analysis to come up with an objective reasoning to let those people go. And then you do that. I actually had to do that with a doctor last week, and it was for economic reasons. And I had to build a case and always think at it from the standpoint that you need to build a case in order to be able to present it to court. That's it. I'm looking over here about an employee with COVID that didn't want to be around people during COVID. Well, guess
Tracy, I
what?
hate to say it, but this is an
You're in a
example of
medical-
everything that's wrong with the US, right? When I can get paid more on unemployment than when I'm getting paid to do a job, you wonder why things are the way that they are. But
That's
Well,
yeah,
let
there's
me address this. If
Tracy.
you
So
are
I would
Yeah,
Huh?
let me get this, because that was very interesting, because I actually had to deal with it with a
Yeah.
doctor that says, no, I'm not concerned about COVID, so I don't want to get close to any patient that is sick. And I look at it and say, so
You're in
as a
healthcare.
doctor, you aren't going to be seeing healthy patients? Well, bye. Go somewhere else. I had to let them go. So you got to look at it. I'll go back. What is the job responsibilities? Well, my job responsibilities are to be on the reception. If you don't feel that having a piece of cloth in your face that does nothing is not enough to protect you, guess what? You gotta go. I need to replace you because I cannot change that. But that's different at me having another issue, that it was a diabetic doctor that needed to have her set lunchtime because otherwise her sugar levels will drop. And then so I had to accommodate the schedule so she could do
ADA.
that. Yeah.
But that would fall under ADA. You're screwed
Yes.
there.
Yes. But an employee that doesn't feel comfortable around patients and works in a clinic and her job is dealing with patients, that's a black and white. Say, listen, so you're telling me you cannot do the duties of your job. I'm not big enough to transfer you to another area.
It's a wild
So I
scenario.
have to let you go. That's a very simple black and white.
In my personal opinion, I would say congratulations, because you got rid of a lazy employee and they were probably going to be horrible for morale in your office during a tough time anyways. So I would have helped them pack their bags and told them, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you, you know? So
Those are the cases where you win immediately. And you can go to an
I was
employment
gonna
like
say.
what Tracy was putting there about she won. It was $800 a month that they were paying. Of course, you're gonna win.
Unemployment was
because
paying them an extra 800, but that was during, again, that was an odd time during COVID with all the nonsense. Now that stuff is gone.
yeah,
And this is where I don't know if it's worth contesting unemployment when an employee leaves voluntarily. Because
that's really good. Yes.
certain states allow it, certain states don't. And then they trash you on social media.
That's normal. They are going to trash you. Anytime that you are doing something that you are supposed to, they don't agree with you, that's the way out. The problem is, what do you do about that? There's nothing you can do. And if you go back and forth, you look petty. So the best thing is just to ignore it, move forward. And then one of my doctors, what he did, he was talking to all his patients after they were coming in and say, make sure that you put a positive comment on social media. Make sure. So he buried,
he buried it. That's a smart idea.
yeah. So you bury one, and then it looks petty on the other person, because now I have you saying that I was a bad person, but I have these 10, 20 people don't go that far scrolling down. Okay.
No.
I have these 10, 20 people saying that I did great. Shh, let it be. Okay. So they're not going to pay attention. It's the only way to handle it. And I see it everywhere all the time.
Well, before we jet and you give us that answer, anybody got any other questions? Go ahead and put them in the chat. You were going to mention something about the voluntary separation with the unemployment. Because I know that you were going to say something about it. Do you remember?
Yes, I do. And it's that because people will basically quit and go for unemployment. Well, I'm going to be taking unemployment. And those are the ones that I say, why? Why should I pay you for something that it was your choice? So most of the time, it depends. I will go back to return on investment. Okay, how much money is it gonna cost me to defend that unemployment? Because the thing is that then they will raise the number that what you pay for the insurance. It
They're gonna
depends,
pay, they're gonna raise it no matter what. They're
right?
gonna raise it whether you give it to them or whether you don't give it to them.
Yeah. So one
Or at
thing
least in the
is,
state of Florida. I don't know
yeah,
personally about every other state, but I imagine it's quite similar.
yeah. But I look at this on everything. Is on everything I look return on investment, number one. Number two is pick the fights. Why do I want to pick a fight with a receptionist that has no training, that is going to take me to have to spend hours on that? With the time that I'm spending there, I can pay 5 of her to replace it. So it's not worth it. So again, balance. Don't be emotional. Be objective. Does it make sense? Doesn't make sense. Did you do your due diligence? I'm not concerned about unemployment. I'm concerned about a lawsuit. I have one employee, like I say, I can talk about this for months, but I have one employee in particular that is suing this corporation because of the way they handle, I would say, an interaction between two employees. But the funny part about it is that this employee does not want to quit. So she's suing the company and she expects to stay with the company working after she wins the case and the company pays her for this
Okay.
thing. And I laugh and I say, are you kidding me?
Well, so I have seen that before, but I've usually only see that during discrimination cases against like a federal agency. For example, there's one currently with the FBI in regards to the FBI and quite a few females that were tanked
Yes,
during their boot camp.
yes,
And that one turned into, I want to say it's like a $20 million
yeah,
case. Um, so it's a pretty large one, but that one they had to stay in as long as they could to show more damages.
yes. Yeah, no, but this one was drama. Whenever you
Yeah, yeah.
have more than 2 persons anywhere, there's going to be drama. There's interaction, there's drama. And again, I'll go back to remove, well, one of the things I tell everybody that works for me is it doesn't matter what happened, it's my fault. Because that way I remove the feelings. Okay. So now that you say it's my fault, so I'm not blaming you or you or you or whatever. Now let's look at the facts. What happened? And believe it or not, there have been times that I have a daughter, I will never forget. He said, oh crap, I say that. Yeah. So now you can look at it from the standpoint of, I don't care what you meant to say. This is what you say. And it was a completely different context. So you have to remove the feelings, look at the facts, and that will help you decide of, okay, what are we going to do and who is at fault, even though I say already it's my fault. Doesn't matter. You need to correct it one way or the other. Okay. Anything
Cool,
else?
cool. So I think we're at time.
I was going to say, I
So
don't see any questions in here currently, but if you guys have any questions about today's presentation or for Dr. Delgado, please direct them in the chat. And
and if not, then or if you send them to us late, we'll get to them and we'll give you a quick answer either by email or through the to the next video. Ray, who do we have on deck next week?
so on deck next week, we will be interviewing a EPICompliance customer of ours, Gianni Gonzalez, and she specializes in credentialing. So we're going to be talking about credentialing and the compliance aspect with that. So we're looking forward to having her on, and she's excited to be on here as well.
Perfect, perfect. So then I'm looking forward to talking to her about how she sees all this happening, because I'm at the point now where I say screw the big insurances. So I'm very curious to see how she plays with this this conversation with us. So
Oof. You see, that's another thing I could tell you about what I see in terms of, and there's a difference between insurance and managed care, and where's the future going. The bottom
everything's headed
line
to the managed care
is the
route.
money. It's the lack of
Everything's
money.
headed to the managed care route.
It is, but there's still going to be some PPO, some again,
They
there are
call
going
them
to be other
PPOs, but they
organizations.
operate like HMOs.
Yes, but there's going to be changes. But regardless, is there are answers for
Of
us that are
course.
in healthcare. It's just
Of
you
course,
gotta
of course.
open your mind to see how
Of
you're going to do
course,
it and
of
what you're going to
course.
do.
Of course, but that's why I'm glad that we're having her on, because everybody can hear a different take, because mine has been rather pessimistic in regards to the private insurances.
One
So.
thing Dr. Headley always mentions is that there's not a lot of good credentialing companies out there.
No, I can tell you that right now.
So that's
That's
Well,
one of the reasons why I'm in the position we're in.
It's not just that. It's that the insurances are playing games. I wrote a blog about insurances that are denying 18% of clean claims just because they can do it. And then you have to go after them. And this was found by the Department of Justice, the OIG. So they delay, and they will delay credentialing because it's to their benefit. That way they won't pay you. So it's all games about money. So you gotta learn, like I say, learn the rules. If you're gonna play the game, learn the rules. Otherwise, you're gonna lose. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, guys,
So-
we took too much from everybody else. I do want to thank you. I understand for all of the people that are here. We do this thing for you because we care about you. And when I created all the documentation for EPI was because I wanted to be able to help the healthcare providers, because it looks like every time we turn around, somebody's trying to take advantage of us. So we are not that. We are here for you. So anything that you need, let us know. Okay. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Tracy, as always.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Dr. Delgado, as always. Jose, we'll see you on the next one.
Okay.
Yep. Take it easy, guys.
Take care, guys.
Sunshine.